That's right.
Like, you got to go and experience the world to know what you like and you don't like. It doesn't
sure.
correlate just having it on your phone. It's a huge issue that we're going to see become more and more prevalent. And it's fascinating because if you really think about, like, the last 100 years have seen some of the most advanced technological changes. The world that we live in today and the people who are in their 80s and 90s, I mean, they had such a crazy time to live through. And now they have smartphones and they're looking at it and watching it. And it's really quite fascinating.
Funny how.
Come here though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
Ladies and gentlemen, hey, what's going on? Amanda, thanks for hopping on. This is cool. Normally, obviously, it's been a while since you've been in town here, but you're currently up in the ATL. See?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, still in Atlanta.
Very cool.
Northwest Atlanta. I'm
Northwest,
like going towards Chattanooga.
Is that like a Chicago thing where you have to like distinguish north and south?
Many suburbs. It's huge. It's such a huge sprawl that people are very particular in Atlanta. Like, they like, if you're an actual Atlanta person, you're inside the perimeter, which is the highway that like circles. And then if you're outside of the perimeter, you're not from Atlanta. But
oh my,
you kind of are, because you're part of the metropolitan.
Interesting.
So I'm way out.
So you're out, yeah. So you're not a part of any affiliated with any gangs or wars
no gangs,
currently.
No.
Okay.
No, not at the moment. Was looking for one, but it didn't work out.
The colors didn't match.
It's weird how that is. No gangs. Not that I'm sure there are gangs in Atlanta, but no.
Yeah, you're too busy for that anyway. A lot going on.
I'm in the high society portion. I like to think.
Who has time for gangs nowadays? So Atlanta's fun. I know for a while you were acting, you were doing some gigs there, and now you launched a production company. So lots going on. So tell us kind of like a little origin story about how you got started in terms of like the creator side, and now you have a podcast that you're launching up again, which I'm excited to hear some more episodes. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, so I moved to Atlanta to be an actress after years of wanting to pursue that, but never feeling like it was something that you could actually do. I came from a very blue collar family, and the arts and entertainment was not how you actually made money, right? And so I was pushed into working and dabbled with modeling on the side and pageantry. And then eventually, I call it my quarter life crisis. At 28, I was just like, what am I doing? This is not what I want. In a month, my lease was up in St. Pete, and I was like, screw it, I'm moving somewhere to pursue acting. And I ended up with Atlanta. It's the Hollywood of the South. And I figured there was probably less of me in Atlanta than in LA, and the cost of living way different. And I didn't want to be like the starving artist. So I came to Atlanta.
Less wildfires as well?
Yeah. I mean, I've done some commercial work. Was in a couple of movies. Nothing too crazy. I still do act from time to time. I mostly just get the call from, the director's like, hey, man, will you come do this commercial? Which is great because commercials are where it's at.
Yeah.
Like a one shoot, you're in, you're out, you're done. None of this like 15-hour days in a cattle call. Ugh, it's awful.
That's cool.
So I just do it from time to time. It's more of a hobby than anything. But then I started to realize I could make my own content. And I was like, well, let's try doing that. And when the pandemic hit, I kind of got into it more and more. And I got into public speaking more and more. That's kind of like the bridge, right? Speaking on a stage is very similar in some ways to acting, but you're actually using your own voice, your own ideas, your own stories versus portraying a character.
Right.
And so like this great hybrid for me. Actually, it all started really when I came down to our friend's wedding and I gave a speech and everybody was like, oh, your speech was great. And I was like, I like this. How do I do more speaking stuff? And I looked it up, found Toastmasters, which is an international organization that helps you learn to be a better public speaker. Highly recommend. And dove into that head first, especially when the pandemic hit. I had nothing else to do. My job got shut down. And I was like, well, so I'm just going to play with this. Found a group, ended up doing a 77-day video challenge where I had to go live for 77 days on Facebook.
Wow.
which turned into a podcast.
Sure.
Which had one name, changed it now to Yes You May with Amanda May Gray. And it's all about finding your confidence, finding how to give yourself permission, and not waiting for somebody else to come along and give you the kudos or say you're good enough. Because that was a big thing. That was my big problem. Despite what it looked like from the outside, I struggled with confidence, self-confidence still, of course, have some issues with that, feeling good enough. And so that's where it all really came from, is my own insecurities and not wanting other people to feel that way, because it's super deliberating. What's the word?
Deliberating?
Yep, I think that's the word.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll go with that.
Somebody's going to be like, tuned out. I'm done with you.
Yeah.
Done. And so I just felt like if my struggle and what I found could help other people, then why not?
Yeah.
Why not share it? And so I was frustrated with the acting industry. Like, it's not great. It's not great. And I was like, well, I can make my own content, or I could just try to be on other people's things. So making my own content, that's where I landed.
Debilitating, by the way.
Debilitating. Dang it. That's the word.
You're on a roll. I didn't want to stop. See, that's such a cool story, and it's cool to hear again, just kind of like a recap, because I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? Not just with the confidence aspect, but just figuring out what you want to do. I mean, just in general, I don't know if you could relate, but probably when you left Florida and you're like, Atlanta, actress, I want to do this, I want to do that. You had a passion for it, you wanted to do it, but also like you probably had this pressure of like, I'm almost 30, I got to get my shit together, yada, yada, yada. And I think that's where our confidence gets hit a little bit, where we kind of have these expectations of, where I'm supposed to be at 30, or where I'm supposed to be at 40, or am I supposed to have kids? Am I supposed to be married? Should I be dating? Like all this stuff, very similar to how when we scroll on social media, we look for these other people and we see what they're doing and we're like, golly jeepers, I want that. And that's where your confidence gets hit. That's where it gets hit the most, I think. And there's no coincidence why most people in their 30s and 40s now in 2025 are more confident than the younger generation. I think it's because we grew up in our primal years up until 25, 30, where we didn't really have a lot of social media. There wasn't a lot of scrolling, or, you were outside, you got a chance to explore ideas, and, you had a group of friends, maybe 10, 15, 20 people at the most that you really listened to. Well, now, I mean, I could speak for myself. I have 50,000 people just on Instagram that follow me, and I get comments all the time. And sometimes those comments, even though you're not supposed to read them, but I do, sometimes those comments get to a little bit, right? And I think that's how we are with social media as a whole, where if you're scrolling, whether you have 50,000 followers or 5,000 followers, that's a lot of people, dude. It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of constant influx of information and opinions, and with filters, and people really are showing the highlight reel. You don't always see reality. I don't always. Right. I mean, like, you pretty much never see reality, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge issue. Interesting you should say that, because I also talk about generations and bridging the generation gap in my speaking work. I'm actually flying out to Seattle in March to do a whole keynote about bridging the generation gap.
Cool.
And I see this huge, huge shift with my stepchildren in their, early 20s. One's a teenager. Like, they don't have the same social abilities in person. Their ability to communicate in person is way, way different. And I'm always harping on them.
Of course.
As it was huge on communication. I'm always like, if you can master this, if you can get good at this, if you're even just like 10% better than your peers, you're going to be light years ahead of them in the long run. Because this ability is it's deteriorating, because what they see is always the highlights. They're immersed in it. We didn't have social media when we were growing up. So it's a completely different perspective of the world as a whole. I remember one time, our middle boy was like, oh, I don't want to go on a cruise. I've seen what that's like. I already know I wouldn't like it. And I'm like, how do you know that you don't like something because you saw somebody else's one-time perspective on it?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, you got to go and experience the world to know what you like and you don't like. It doesn't correlate just having it on your phone. So it's a huge issue that we're going to see become more and more prevalent. And it's fascinating because if you really think about like the last 100 years have seen some of the most advanced technological changes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so the world that we live in today and the people who are in their 80s and 90s, I mean, they had such a crazy time to live through. Like it's fascinating that they barely had cars, right? Like cars were coming around, but like still wasn't that common. These were not a thing. All this entertainment wasn't a thing. And now they have smartphones and they're
Yeah.
looking at Facebook and watching it. And it's really quite fascinating if you think about
Yeah.
that time and what's changed. And I think we're in a huge struggle right now because those ideals haven't fully morphed despite living in them. Like what this generation expects and what the generations before expect are just so different.
Yeah.
That it's just going to be a real struggle for the next 100 years probably, but it might not change quite as drastically. Although with AI, we shall see.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say too. I think the big issue. Well, first of all, AI is out of control. That's for damn sure. But just going back to your point, generation. I mean, people don't understand that about one person ago, radio was invented.
Yeah,
I think it was like 19, or maybe it was 1890 or something like that. Radio was invented.
yeah.
So
Look.
yeah, I mean, so you look at 135 years ago, radio was invented, and then of course, TV very far from that. But just one person ago, we had the ability to literally go from radio to where we are now. We're doing a podcast in a different state with each other,
right?
Virtually
with the camera,
great audio, and it's just, it's so nuts. And then now you fast forward probably another 50 years. And you got this AI thing. Who knows where it's going to go? There's already videos of like 2 fake AI robots talking video, but they look, real, like you and I. And I don't know if you've seen that, but there was like literally a video of a podcast where it's 2 people, and they're a simulation, they're AI. Yeah, it's fake, and they realize halfway through the conversation that they're fake. And they go, it was funny. I was talking to my wife about this, where it's like we're fake. We're not real people. We're AI, and we're having this podcast come. And then the other guest is like, really? We're fake? Yeah, we're completely fake. But they look so
that's
real.
Fascinating.
It's so, and dude, that's 2025.
They can take your likeness now.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things in Hollywood is with all the strike that was happening is because they can take your likeness. Yeah. And if you sign off and don't read every single little thing, which none of us do, that whole image just can go out there. But it's like even my husband's like reluctant with like an Amazon Echo in our house. He's like, oh, they're listening. I don't want security cameras with Amazon. And I'm like, it's too late.
Yeah, dude, it's already, get rid of the phone.
It's too late.
Yeah.
If you have a smartphone, it's too late. They already know. I mean, have you ever? You have. Let's put it this way. I'll tell you, I'm interested in getting a Rolex. Right. Rolex is a great brand. Have you ever looked into a used Rolex? The prices of used Rolex are more than the MSRP on the new Rolexes these days. Guess what, everybody? Now your phone is going to have Rolex ads on it.
Yeah.
Like that just works.
Yeah, that's crazy. And, at first I thought to myself when I was getting the Echoes and the listening devices and, turning on Siri and all that, it was kind of a good thing, right? Because then you're watching an ad and you're like, oh, we were just talking about that. Perfect. I'm going to buy it anyway. But then after a while, you realize like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm talking about couches. My phone was in a different room and now my wife picked up on it. And now it is serving my wife, and now it's having my name and my wife's name on the ad. It's like, wait a minute, this is like spam to a new level. And
that's the data, and that's the data that they've been talking about, and all like what they're stealing, what they're doing with it. It's absolutely insane, and we have the average user has no idea.
Yeah. And you can't really hate on social media, right? Because when this is the problem, I think, with Congress and just the U.S. government as a whole, really every government. The problem is they're not up to date with what's going on in the real world. And, I think, hate him or love him, at least Trump is surrounding himself with the smartest people on the planet. Elon, Bezos, Zuckerberg, I forget his name from OpenAI, but he's surrounding himself with these tech billionaires, hate it or love it. The idea of it is these guys are the future. It's a fact. The reason why
100%.
Amazon is what it is today is because of Jeff Bezos, right? And
Exactly.
I think the problem is you look at like that versus the U.S. Post Office, which is a government-run facility.
Which is so bad.
It's so bad. But this is the great thing with America, right? Is capitalism and innovation, and it drives competition. And this is how we have Amazon now, is because the post office sucks. So if the government was really good, we wouldn't have Amazon because they would have come up with that. But that's, again, the problem where you look at when they saw the social media thing coming, they should have people around them, whether they're mentors or advisors, that are literally just surrounding themselves with experts in that field. Another reason why NASA failed, right? And Elon took over SpaceX, is the government doesn't surround themselves with experts. So private companies come in, obviously paying for it and doing it. And when it's not governed properly, this is where it gets out of hand. Now we're 25 years into Facebook being a thing. So year one, they should have said, hold on, how are you guys getting our data? Yeah. How are you guys getting our data? Oh, Mark Zuckerberg, you're doing it that way? That's year one. They should have had this conversation. And they should have said, you can take people's data, but you owe us, the people, the United States, a 1% return off your profits. And that goes to the taxpayer, let's say. And you and I every year get an annual bonus for giving our data to Facebook because Facebook is able to make trillions of dollars. And if they did that on year one, everyone's making money. But we also are in the situation where, well, we don't want to interfere with private companies, which is silly because they just interfere with TikTok, which is a partially owned Chinese company. And they interfere with companies all the time. So
interfered with Facebook this whole time too. Now that that's coming out, like there's a lot more that's going on than we realize behind the scenes. But at the same time, to your point, if they were efficient, if they didn't have all the red tape, right? That's the problem with the government. My eldest son, stepson, is in the Army, and he's learning all about the red tape of the military. And I dated an Army recruiter for quite some time in a prior life. Yeah. I'm very familiar with the red tape. And my sister's in the military. Like,
that's crazy.
There's so much red tape that slows them down and just completely obliterates progress. So I saw something recently, since the inauguration, and they're like, oh, look at all the billionaires behind President Trump at the front row. And they're mad about it. But I think about it in a different way. These are people who don't need to gain power, status, or money, right? Whereas your traditional politician goes into politics maybe with great intent, but how many have become millionaires X over because they're a politician, which is completely technically not what you're supposed to be doing, right? How it's set up to work, especially with the pay. So you're telling me that then the people who are elected into office, who are now all of a sudden millionaires, they're better at running the country with their special interests in their pockets than the people who already have it all, who have figured it out, who are obviously geniuses. And if nothing else, or maybe they're like a Henry Ford, maybe they aren't the smartest person, but they know how to bring people together.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe that is what we need.
Yeah.
Maybe we do need to take a step back away from corrupt politicians and the deep state that is just being fueled by big pharma or this or that, not to get completely political. But that's just what I think about. Is like, well, maybe it is good. Maybe there is something that could be learned here if we look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we just have to do that in like as a whole with everything, is just, look at everything from a different perspective, because we always think you look at America just as a whole, right? I mean, we're not that old. 300 years ago, three people ago, okay? Like 3 people ago, like our great-great-grandmothers were in an era where there were slaves. That's 3 people ago. So we've learned a lot since then, for sure.
Oh my gosh.
But just like every country, we have a lot of opportunity. And I think to look at each year over year, to look at everything as if it's always been good and there's not room for growth or opportunity would be silly.
Well, that's where you're failing automatically.
But a lot of people
comes from failure.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of people, I think, again, the issue with politics as a whole is like we always go from left to right, right? We vote Democrat and then we're like, oh, that sucks. Let's vote for Republican. And then they're like, oh, I don't like that. Let's vote for the. It's because 4 years just isn't enough to get anything done.
It's not.
But also
It
a lot
feels
can
a long time, but,
change in 4 years too. You know, so it's like
there's huge changes in technology in 4 years.
yeah,
But
and
like you said, Facebook's 25 years. Let's see, it was 2006
Mhm.
when Facebook.
yeah, was that it? Yeah, so 20 years. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
19, 20
No,
years.
almost 25 years now.
Yeah, that's
Um,
wild.
but it was drastically different then than it is now.
For
I mean,
sure.
think about how much changed in that 1/4 of a century time period. Like
Yeah, nuts.
massive. We didn't have these, right? We didn't have this literal. It's funny when I used to sell cell phones, I'd be like, "Well, you're holding a laptop in your pocket,"
Yeah,
and people would be surprised at how they would break. Oh, well, I've dropped it a million times. It hasn't broken before. I'm like, you've put hairline fractures a million times. It finally broke. Like, that's how this works,
yeah,
And they'd be like, oh, well, it was in the water for a minute. Well, yeah, that's long enough.
right.
But, but we didn't even have that in 2006. In 2006, we had some Motorola Razr flip phones.
Gangsta.
And we're cool with a color camera back in high school, right? Like it's funny how quickly we forget.
Yeah.
Difference.
Well, and not only that, but how quickly we realize that things are going too quick, and that you need to catch up with time. A lot of people. This is a great experiment if you want to ask your parents. What the benefits of TikTok. Your parents are going to be like, Chinese app. It's again, there's no education around what the platform itself means. It's disconnecting from quote unquote social media, and you're able to like just be yourself and not be a fake Instagrammer, which typically I think is the reason why people love TikTok. Like I've never laughed harder than watching TikTok videos. You don't laugh as hard when you watch Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. It's just there's something unique and special about it. And whether the government's spying on us is irrelevant because, again, they've had 4 years to do so, right?
Well, they've been spying on us this whole time.
Right. So, like, it's too late.
That's the problem.
Like Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they all had TikTok accounts. So if China was really stealing our data and doing something that is unsavory to our government, they did it to our own president. So it's too late. It's already done. So let us keep the app, right? And that's just what's so silly about it. It's too late. It's already done. It's been 4 years. So again, if it was that bad, then why are we getting our pharmaceutical drugs from China? Why are we getting everything from it? Like it's just,
and that's some of the things that they're really pushing for, right? Is trying to bring it back here because it isn't great. But then how come they're what was it? Red 4, they banned a dye recently, but it's like not until 2027 or some shit.
Yeah, red dye number 3. Yeah,
and 40 is terrible. Like all these synthetic dyes are terrible for you. Like
and it's banned in other countries too.
Be worried about. Okay, if it's banned in Europe and other countries, maybe we need to fast track these things.
Yeah,
I don't need bright colored cereal for children. It's unnecessary.
No. Yeah, it's wild, man. And again, it's just again the thought process of generations. We look at, I think this generation, millennials, Gen Zs, and so on, they're more skeptical about everything. And a lot of people, including our parents and grandparents, probably think of that as irresponsible or misinformation.
We felt like they could trust the powers that be.
Sure.
More. But unfortunately,
and maybe they could.
That then led to, it was a compounding effect, right? If you can trust the powers that be, then they're going to take advantage. And it got worse and worse and worse. And we're at a sort of a pinnacle now, right? Like we're at the peak of it all. And we've seen that maybe we can't trust all of this because we can't. Because unfortunately, you should have a healthy skepticism of it all.
Yeah.
But
well, and I mean, we just can't trust, humans, man. Humans are, there's 8 billion people on the planet. I mean, there's never going to be a time where we're going to live in a world where no one's angry, no one's racist, no one's mean. Husbands don't beat their wives don't cheat on their husbands. Like, there's always going to be shitty people.
Humans are always going to be humans.
Yeah. I mean, again, we go back to just 1,000 years ago, right? Like every single country, every single established civilization had slaves, would take their tribe, go to another tribe, beat and rape every single person there, take their land, burn the bodies. Like we were savages.
Oh,
This
yeah.
was not that long ago. This was
No.
1,000 years ago. The Roman times, it was only
I was
2,000
going
years
to
ago.
say, think about the Colosseum and what
Oh
they were
my
doing there.
God. Insane. So we're primal. We're never going to get out of that, I don't think. What's great about this country is how we've kind of supplemented that Colosseum
Supplement.
anger is we've taken technology and we've adopted kind of this, you know, all major civilization, Dubai, China, like all these folks have taken technology and kind of use that as kind of the tool of competition, which is good. But then also, again, if you're not following it as a citizen, this is where I think the challenges of generationally how like our parents versus us are acting, whether it's to TikTok or to AI, you have to be up to date with these things, you know, because it is part of the world that we live in. And
Well, it's only going to
technology
get
is, yeah, it's only going to get better and more crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think you can literally. One of my mentors has already figured this out. He has his own avatar of himself that he has trained and programmed, and he can type in a script and it will say, looks like him. He will say the script and it can say it in a different language.
Crazy. That's so crazy. Ugh.
And, you know, in my world with professional speaking, people are like, oh, it's going to replace us. And it's like, well, people are always going to want that in person. And I think we're going to end up hitting a peak on this as well and wanting to go back in person more and have real experiences more. Like you said, oh, next time you're in Florida, like we're going to strive and crave that in person, at least the older generations for sure. But I think the younger will come up on it and will see how great it is in person and real experiences are. And there will be, I don't think we're ever going to get fully away from the digital portion of it. And I think it's an amazing tool. Like it is so badass that you and I we could be across the world and do this. Like that's amazing to me. And I think this is a skill that everybody needs to learn, understand, and at least be competent at, is this ability to communicate on a video call. But there's something about in person that cannot ever be replaced.
Yeah. Oh, it's way different. Yeah, for sure. Well, and also too, like those little things like just the lag, you know, like I hate interrupting people, but it's so hard not to when, you know, there's this like 2-second lag virtually. Right. But yeah, but in person, I think is even though we haven't like grabbed our phones or, you know, taken calls or anything, but there's something unique about this meeting in particular when it comes to podcasting, because you're able to just have a conversation, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and you're not on your phone. You're not texting a friend. You're not looking at Instagram or photos or anything like that. You're just in the moment and you're talking about whatever the topic is. There's just something really cool and unique about that, where I think I don't think everyone should have a podcast because it is a skill, but I think you should figure out a way to have these conversations. Maybe it's just like you FaceTime your friends every week. You don't have to record it and post it for everybody to find out like you and I do. But if you could just,
we're weird.
we're weird. But if you could just like FaceTime with friends and just look at them and have that conversation if you can't be in person, I think there's something cool about that, because we get disconnected a lot from going literally. I mean, let's say you work at home 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then you're just cooking dinner with your spouse. It gets boring. And then you go on that phone and you scroll and you just look at everyone live their fake lives.
It's such a time suck.
It is. Yeah.
So there's something that I've been thinking a lot lately, and I have not achieved as much as I have wanted to. And I know it's a lot of social media addiction. But there's something about consuming versus creating.
Mm.
And so I've been trying to tell myself more and more, stop consuming, start creating. Right? Instead of just constantly consuming. And creating doesn't have to be creating social media per se. It can be creating, I don't know, you could be flipping furniture. I don't care what it is. It's doing versus just consuming, because we really are becoming just this watching a screen constantly.
Yeah.
And it's sucking the life and the soul out of people because they are just so addicted, and it's so easy. I mean, it's so freaking easy to just keep dopamine hitting. And it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
And by the way, don't get me wrong, it's great. It's hilarious and fun and amazing.
There's a lot to it. And you can learn so much.
Yeah. But so is ecstasy. Right? Like so it's like there is a correlation between social media and drugs where you do get that dopamine hit, but it's literally a dopamine hit every swipe. It's almost like you're doing a quick little line, like real.
Well, it's actually a lot like that when you really think about it.
Yeah. So
and
people,
it's 100% an addiction.
Yeah, and it not only is it like mentally draining you, but it drains our pockets. I did a video on this the other day where there's a couple of reasons why you're broke. The big reason is you're spending money that you don't have. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is because we're looking at things that we don't need, but because we're so infatuated with, we scroll and we see like this influencer have this really great couch. Oh, it's only $500. Oh, I could probably put that here. I could put that. You don't need it, but you consume that video and you got sold by a really dope video and you bought it. If you weren't consuming that video, wanting to buy something, wanting to get infatuated with something, wanting to love something, then you wouldn't have done that and you would have more money in your pocket. Instead, you could put down the phone, like you said, create, and then maybe have that extra money and go on a trip somewhere, go experience a different country, go to a winery that you wanted to see and just experience life, I
do love a winery. Something that my husband and I have been trying to be more intentional with is less things, more experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't our kids don't need more items. They do not. Yeah. They don't need more clothes. They don't need this. They don't need that. They do not need more material things. Mm-hmm. Let's have experiences instead. Let's do things that you're going to remember, because the problem with this easy hit of dopamine with each video is the dopamine of getting something now has decreased in its longevity. Okay. So when I buy something new or get a new shirt, right? You wear it for a couple days and it wears off so much faster than what it used to. Yep. So now I need another new shirt, or now I need the latest perfume or whatever it might be. And so then you imagine this crazy amount of stuff. And really looking to these natural disasters lately, natural, probably in quotes, I don't know. We're not going to get into that. But looking at like Helene, looking at these fires and people literally losing everything. And I mean like everything. If you stop and think, if I literally lost everything and you start looking around, like my water bottle would be gone. My socks are gone. This fancy lamp I spent probably too much money on is gone. Like when you really look around and stop and take a minute to see all the things that you have and realize how much money it would take to replace everything and how much work. Or like if you so I'm going to redo my closet. And I'm like, how much money do I really need to spend on that? Right? Yeah. Because it could be gone like that.
That's
right. You don't know.
Yeah. So
and it's just this waning dopamine hits that I don't know the answer to. I wish I did.
Yeah, there's a great.
Well, I know it for personally, but it's everybody has to choose it for themselves.
That's right. Yeah. Well, there's a great. I forget who said. I want to say Jerry Seinfeld, but I could be wrong.
Love him.
But he's the best. But he said something because he's very stoic and like real, and he doesn't care about anybody's feelings. But he's so funny.
Benefit of being rich.
He said something that was fascinating. I don't know if it was a stand-up bit or if it was just an interview, but he said everything from what you're sitting on to what you're wearing, it's going to end up in a landfill. Everything. And they go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, literally if you buy something today, you're eventually going to grow out of it. You're not going to like it, whatever. It might go in the back of your closet. It could break. It goes back in your closet. Once it goes back in your closet, you realize, I don't really like it anymore. So maybe you'll put it in the attic or the basement. Or maybe potentially you'll donate it. Okay, so if you donate it, great. You did a great service. You donated to somebody. Well, they're going to grow out of it. It's going to go in the back of their closet. It's going to go in their attic. Eventually, it will end up in the landfill. Everything will end up in the landfill. And when you look at things like that, where it's like everything has that shelf life. whether it's a year, 5 years, 10 years. So where is everything going to be if you bought nothing else for the next 20 years? If you just stayed with all the things you have for 20 years. In 20 years, if you get rid of everything, you'll have nothing. But you'll be happy. You'll be you. You'll be alive. You'll have experiences. You'll have life. So you're not going to like the same things that you did today versus 20 years from now. So so why keep the things that you have now? Why it's just that temporary short-term satisfaction. And when you can get out of that, as opposed to what we typically do, especially here in America, which is we have so many nice things. We need to go to the Container Store and we need to buy cute things to put our nice things to organize all the shit that we.
But it better be a cute container.
They're super cute and clear, and I watch the show on Netflix, and I want to buy it and organize it. But then you don't understand. Oh, in the course of a year, I'm spending, whatever, $5,000 on. On bullshit you don't need.
It's so easy to spend, right? It's so easy to just click and something shows up at your house.
Oh, in 2 days, it's the worst.
It's great and it's terrible. When you need something, it's great. And then if you think about it, or like when something doesn't take or takes way longer. So I ordered pajamas for my dog. I know that sounds funny, but I live in colder weather and he gets cold. He needed jammies, okay?
Sure.
He's very cute in his jammies. Well, they came from China. And I didn't know that they were going to take 3 freaking weeks to get here. And it was way past Christmas. And his Christmas jammies finally showed up. And I was like, what the heck, man? And I was so annoyed at the situation. But if you think about it, like, wow, how first world problem to be annoyed that it took 3 weeks for my dog to get his jammies. Like,
where just 5 years ago that didn't exist.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And he has jackets. It's like he's fine. He didn't really need one, but it was, it's cold.
Of course, he needed it. Yeah.
We're so used to this constant that we have to stop ourselves, and we have to collectively as a society just, if it's dinner and I'm sitting down to food, you need to put this away. We got to put it down. Yeah. Right? Like I need to have a conversation here, and I yell at my family all the time. I'm like, put your phone away. Don't put it in your pocket. Don't have your headphones in at dinner. No, nope. Get them out. And I'm which is funny because I'm the youngest parent, right? Because, but I'm the one who's strict on these things.
You're the one telling them. Yeah. Well, we have this one thing from Stolp, STOLP, and it's like this little container. I don't think I have it in here, but it's like this container where you put your phones in, and it's pretty cool. So like, when we're having dinner, or if, the baby goes down and we have only like a couple hours to either watch episodes or do something else, we put the phone in those, and that way we kind of like have a space where we put the phone, we put it in a different room, and we don't focus on it, because you could do the whole thing. Oh, put it in the middle of the table and yada yada. But man, it's like a crackhead staring at a needle and a spoon.
Let me look that up real quick. What's the answer to this? Like, there's so many things that, can we do something on Friday? I don't know. Do we already have plans on Friday? Well, let me look at the calendar.
That's right. It's just, there's so many. Yeah. And
I just told my daughter the other day, like, I'm starting to make her drive to school because she needs to learn how to do that,
Right. Of course.
So your turn. It's not my turn anymore. Now it's your turn. And she's like texting as soon as she gets in the car behind the driver's side. I was like, put it away. We got to go. We're late to school. Dude. Oh, well, I was like, no, they can wait. They do. It is a luxury that you respond as quickly as you do, no matter who it is. I don't care if it's your father, my husband. I don't care if it's your mom. I don't care who it is. It's a luxury, and they can wait while you drive safely.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the key.
Like that answer or not? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and our attention spans, right? Our attention spans are, less than 3 seconds. So that has a lot to do with this, because over the course of the growth of social media, we become more adapted to having things right away and things getting shipped right away. And, one thing I started doing, which was, for anybody out there, this might help you a little bit. I always was in this habit of like grabbing my phone for, when we're watching shows for whatever reason.
Look up people.
I would do that sometimes. Yeah.
I do that.
And look, but
sports.
When,
how tall is that guy? He looks really tall.
Yeah. Let me see. And the next thing you know, you're scrolling on TikTok.
Yep.
But I've been doing this thing where I downgraded all my streaming platforms to ads.
Oh.
So like I used to pay,
Was it?
extra to not have ads.
Okay, yeah.
But now I pay less and I watch the ads and I don't grab my phone. But it saves me money, but also it calms me down a little bit because I realize that sometimes if I get bored with a movie or something like that, I'm always grabbing my phone anyway. And watching like a slow, boring commercial has kind of trained me over the course of a year or two to just relax. I don't need
Interesting.
constant stimulation.
Yeah, I don't think my kids could watch a full movie without their phone.
No, of course not. Yeah. So
I mean,
when you
think
throw
about
in,
that's mind-boggling, right?
yeah, nuts. But throw an ad in there and it'll stop the
Yeah.
dopamine hit real quick.
So that's interesting. So my my video production company, the whole thing that it was founded on is the idea that normal retail training or training in general in the corporate world is boring and slow. And where does it happen? It happens on a computer in the back room. And what are people doing while the training video is on?
Phone. Yeah.
So what are they not watching? The training video, right?
Right.
So my company makes social media style training videos that are short, quick, to the point, that you can scan a QR code and it comes up and you watch it on your phone. They're all meant to be watched on the phone on the sales floor. So like instead of having to walk all the way back or do whatever, they're intentionally designed to be fast-paced, interesting, changing it up, very effective at the communication. So that's one of my superpowers is like digesting what somebody's saying and really making it streamlined. Always has been. I got in trouble in school because I would do it and raise my hand. But you know what? It's turned into a company. So
Love it.
but that's the whole point of it is that I'm making these short videos. Now I do them horizontal.
Sure.
Because you can get a lot more on the screen.
Yeah.
It's better for video to do it horizontal, quite frankly, from an editing standpoint. But that's where it's shining, is creating this bridge between the two that's keeping the interest of somebody, but actually getting the information that they need, that they otherwise are just ignoring.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And don't get me wrong, I hate ads on the TV. I don't really watch them, but I've realized that
Some of them are good.
Yeah, some of them are
entertaining.
But I've realized that we are on our phones constantly. But what's so great about like technology now as a whole is like if you have AirPlay or if you want to screen share on your TV, a lot of the people that listen to my podcast watch my YouTube videos, and they I hear them all the time. They open it up on their phone and they just kind of they screen share it to their TV, and now you got my big stupid face on a big screen.
Yes.
And it's just so cool that's where we're at, is we're watching YouTube videos on our TV. It's
the first time I put myself on TV from a YouTube video, my husband and I were like, whoa.
It's kind of cool. It's so cool.
It's crazy. But like, I love to he'll like watch a YouTube video on his phone and I'm annoyed. I'm like, just put it on the TV so I can actually see and hear it too, right?
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to half be involved. Just make me involved.
Yeah, because there is something about that, right? Like having it on your phone versus TV, it feels less addicty.
It all less me.
Right. Yeah.
If anybody else is around, they can see it too. But
For sure.
I want to be involved in it. I want to see it. And I don't know. With ADHD, I find body doubling is a big thing. So for me, I'll put on like cooking shows or any of those reality shows or a podcast or something, and then I can actually clean or do the laundry or
do something productive,
the meal, clean the kitchen. am better off putting that type of stuff on than something that's really going to catch my attention, because it's other people doing things or talking about things. Or like when I'm driving, I love podcasts because that's a time for me to do the multitasking. And drive is bad because I got podcasts going and I'm learning something. Or just an interesting conversation, which hopefully this is. I hope you guys all like it.
Yes, I hope you enjoy. Make sure you subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Yeah, and that's one thing I talk to Brenda about all the time, where her in particular, she's going to hate me for saying this, but she is in this habit, and I think we all get in this habit at some point, is if there was a camera looking at us scrolling on social media, I might scroll as much as her, but the difference is you think I'm scrolling, but really I'm creating something on CapCut. Or I see a video.
Create.
Creating,
consume.
And I've been living with this motto for quite some time. I think it's gotten me to where I'm at today in terms of the content business, where I create more. Like everyone asks me, like, how do you create? I'm doing 2 videos a day, and I have been for a year. But like, how do you create so many videos? I'm like, while you guys are watching Netflix or while you guys are scrolling TikTok, I'll scroll, I'll look for 5 or 6 videos, and then I'll save them. The next day I'll get in the editing room and I'll think of an idea or a concept. And then literally right afterwards, I create all those videos that day. And then when you think I'm scrolling at night, I'm really posting. I'm scheduling my posts out to where I post it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I just spend one day posting all my content and I just automatically post when
batch create.
I
Yep.
just batch create. Yeah. But when I always have this thing where I post and ghost. So I'll post something
And ghost.
and I set it down, man. I don't look at, because here's
Worry
the thing.
about the analytics and the comments and
Dude, someone
Yeah.
asked me the other day, because I do podcast coaching on the side, and they asked me, they go, how many downloads do you have and how many views? And I don't know.
I couldn't tell you that. It's on so many platforms anyways. I don't know how anybody keeps it all.
But why would I? Like, who cares if there's 5 people or 5,000?
It's
I'm
not
just gonna
going
keep
to
doing
help you to obsess over those numbers. It's
Right.
it's exactly the same as stepping on the scale every day.
it. For sure.
Exactly. Right? You're going to obsess over it and you're not going to be happy because it's never going to fully make you happy.
So true.
When really the number on the scale doesn't matter. What matters is when you look at yourself naked in the mirror and you say, yes,
I
I
dig
feel
it.
good.
Yeah.
Number doesn't matter. Your doctor might disagree with me. This is not medical advice, gentlemen.
That's right. But hey, if you could look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'd hit that, you're doing all right.
Right? And in terms of create like these type of numbers, if you have helped
Yeah.
one life, isn't it worth it?
For sure. Yeah.
But we obsess over, I need 1,000, I need a million, I need this or that. No, if you've made an impact in one person's life,
Mm-hmm.
it's worth your time.
Yeah. No doubt.
And you
again,
really, really get rewarded in the universe for how much you put out there that is helpful to somebody else. That's where the reward is. It's not in just one random, like, no, you get rewarded when you are in a benefit to somebody else, when you have helped them accomplish a problem.
Yeah. And people don't really understand the power that social media has. Like, a lot of people look at, like, especially if you're a creator or business owner, and you look at your following, you're like, I only have 500 followers, or I only have 1,000, or I only have 2. Like, if you were to be in a room, and you know this because you've done public speaking, so have I. When you're in a room with 100 people, that's a lot of people, dude.
People, man.
So, like, if you get
It feels
100,
like a lot of eyeballs looking at you when
Oh.
you understand. Ooh.
So if you get 100 views on a video, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You don't need 1 million. Relax.
And even if you have one negative comment, how many times, this is what I think about when I see it. So I have a negative comment on one of my, and it's the only comment on this short, and it's like, this sounds stupid. And I was like, you really take the time to bother to type that out? Like, and I've debated, do I respond? Do I not respond? Do I say something smart? Like, and I've just left it alone. But like, how many times are you watching something and you won't even thumbs it up even though you like it?
Yeah, that's right.
Never mind take the time to actually make a comment.
Mhm.
Like, how many times have I, and I've gotten better at this, I will consciously go back and like it
Yeah.
to engage, to give that creator, because I know they put themselves out there,
Right, totally. That's it. That's exactly right. And
That's it.
and it's I just realized it's one, but I think
It is
I'm,
one.
Yeah, I think I'm good. Hold on. It's
I was just thinking that. I was like, oh, we got to go.
no, you're good.
Well, you got to go.
That flew
I'm
by.
going to hang out here with the dog.
Yeah, wear that nice
But I
outfit.
do try to interact with, I'm just going to keep talking. I do try to interact with especially small creators too, because I
Yeah.
know what that's like.
Yeah.
As a small
Yeah.
creator, I know what it is to like put something out there and be like, did anybody like it? Was it?
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
definitely paralyzed me in the past, and I'm trying to get better at it. If I don't get interaction, then I don't necessarily put something else out
Mm-hmm.
instead
Yeah.
of just plowing through,
Yeah.
putting up the blinders.
Because I think that's the problem with creators and growth is stick-tivity. It's consistency, and I think a big reason why creators aren't consistent, or people in general, whether you want to, paint art, or if you want
Go to the gym.
go to the gym, whatever. It's when you start comparing yourself to others is when things go south. Like If you go to the gym every day and you look around and you're like, I'm not as buff as that guy, I'm not as thin as that girl, boom, you lost. If you look
Which
on
is
your
funny
phone,
because when you do that, like, guess what? That other person that you're comparing yourself to, they're comparing themselves to the next level above you, right? Like,
exactly.
I sometimes catch myself at the gym being like, oh, I can't do a push-up as pretty as the trainer can do.
Right.
But how many people in the gym are looking at me like, dang, I wish I could do a push-up on my feet instead of on my knees like she does. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
Like, you have
For
to
sure.
rethink about that.
Yeah.
Other people are looking at you and you're looking at somebody else, and it's just a chain.
Yeah.
And where's
None of it matters. Yeah.
Nope.
It's always these bars that we've set for no reason, and we continue to raise. It's just an invisible thing that we invented as society as we continue to evolve, where there's this certain bar that we have to, so much so that we've gotten to the point to where my guy Elon is like, you know what? Earth is cool. Mars is better. We're going to go there. Like he's
Occupy Mars.
I mean, that's the bar, man. Is like we've gotten to the point where we think as a society we've evolved so much that we deserve to leave this earth and go to another one. Let's not
Which
focus
is funny
on
because didn't they
this
just
earth.
come out with there's aliens here now? Like,
And now you're going to leave?
it's about to
Aliens
get
are here.
interesting, y'all.
Yeah. The third act is about to be wicked, man. Like, let's stay. And
I mean, there's so much that we don't know, but we're such egotistical human beings. Are so egotistical.
well, that's the thing. And we all have ADD too, right? Like I feel like most billionaires like Elon and Jeff Bezos, I feel like they're at the point where it's like me when I try to do a task, like I'm supposed to write something out and, do something for work, but then I end up cleaning instead.
I do that
and like procrastinating. I feel like that's what Elon and Jeff Bezos are doing with like, we could do this Earth thing and we could fix everything that's going on Earth, but let's just go. Let's just go to outer space.
Let's just go. Well, it's funny because that's like the theory of I've always kind of questioned for mission trips that go elsewhere outside the United States. And I've always like, well, what about all the struggle that's happening in our own backyard? Right?
Yeah.
So, although I appreciate what people are doing, I sometimes wonder, like, why aren't we helping those at home more?
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And like Helene hit pretty good for me because I had friends down there in Florida where you were at, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got plenty of friends that these hurricanes demolished where I used to live. I mean, my ex-friend worked on Paso Grill Beach at one of the, the Brass Monkey or whatever it's called, got annihilated.
Crazy.
And then on the flip side, I have people that I know that I grew up with that live in the North Carolina mountains, which is a shorter drive for me than driving back down to Tampa Bay. And so I saw it from both sides. And I'm like, why aren't we helping these people more? Why are we so focused on the wars overseas or this or that? Like, we need to be focused and take care of home first. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of America's sentiment has gone to. A lot of people in this country, I call it the quiet or silent middle, are like, we take care of our home first.
100%.
Ourselves in order.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that just has to do with the tax breaks and how cheap it is, and all that stuff. And I get all that, but it's unfortunate that we have this kind of like perception where we want to help everyone else, and I think that's a big reason why a lot of people voted the way they did this year is because we're at the point now where, hey man, it's been fun. I mean, 1776, hoorah, Independence Day. Like we've done some great things, but I think. Hoorah. But I think we're at the point where now we need to be like, okay, let's calm down a little bit. Let's focus a little bit more on Chicago, California, New York, all these places where, people are on food stamps. Like, are food stamps really a good thing? The taxpayers are paying for that, for people to use these food stamps on really shitty food. Like the only
That's the problem is food is shit. Like, who can afford organic? What of a freaking concept is that you can't afford organic?
Well, and if anything, you should be able to use food stamps on only organic stuff.
Well,
we should,
or I don't know, just a potato instead of potato chips.
Correct. We should reward. Yeah, we should reward eating healthier versus like, because I talk to people that if you're on unemployment or something like that, you lose a job and you qualify for stamps. Like
I've been there.
Yeah, me too. I mean, but that's a good thing because you're getting free stuff, but you're incentivized now to eat like shit and to be on this forever, to be on welfare, to be on something that is kind of like a crutch. What is your motivation to get out? And I
Well,
think
yeah.
if we gave some sort of motivation to get out, how much billions of dollars do we have to invest in other countries for us to realize, hometown is hurting too.
Well, it's funny they incentivize. I've always felt like before I was married, obviously, but as a single female in my 20s, especially, and my 30s, and I've never given birth to a kid. Why don't I get some sort of like, hey, good job, you didn't populate? Like, how come there's not like a job,
An
Amanda? You
incentive,
aren't causing a burden. Just like, I don't understand. Like, shouldn't I get rewarded for not being
Probably.
like?
Yeah.
Not that there's anything against it, but I've always been like, well, how come I have to be taxed more? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
Yeah, no
taking
credit.
care of myself, man.
I know. Well, that's what you get. That's what you get for
Apparently.
for not. Well, it's like being married, right? It's like the tax credit you get with marriage. I mean, that's kind of the cool incentive about being married.
Well, that's why so many people in the military do it so young.
Exactly. But then also, like, if we have the highest divorce rate, right? Then why isn't there an incentive like if you can stick out marriage for 10 years, you get 20 grand. If you could stick it out for 20 years, you get 30 grand. Like that would be a cool tax incentive. Like that way you stay married, because again, I also look at like for every, what we think is an incentive and a good thing, there's also a lot of downfalls. So like, obviously when parents get divorced, financially it's a burden, mostly on the men, especially if you have kids. I mean, not to be sexist, but it's just a fact.
I'm aware.
Yeah. So it's like where now the men are paying more money. Now they're stressed out. Now their relationships with future females or males is going to be hindered.
Tainted. Yep.
Right. By that stress.
Well,
and then
it can be tainted with their own children because they're men or, maybe they resemble the other half and that drives nuts. Right. So there's a lot.
There's a lot of downside. And then, that's
in that type of a situation, I see it firsthand.
Yeah, of course. And then, especially me being a kid of divorce, I mean, I saw it firsthand where, it's because both my parents are great, but it's like when they were together, they were miserable. So, of course, it's always good to have that separate, but something happened, right? And usually it comes down to money, most likely. And I've always said this on the podcast before where
the biggest reason.
Yeah. And I've always said this where if there was one thing like that I hope presidents focus on is if they could make this world livable, the country rather, if they could make this country livable for everybody, like if they could focus on our shitty part of this country and we could just make better human beings, everything's going to be better. Like you look at all this poor community and it's mostly single moms raising kids. Well, studies show that kids that are raised without good father figures, that they end up going into crime, violence, corruption, etc. So if we could fix that, if we can keep families together and if we could, make sure everyone can afford things. I know this is a pipe dream that everyone talks about and dreams about, but it's really not so far-fetched because I've seen the numbers where if you crunch the numbers of how much we spent on these wars overseas versus how much we could fix Chicago, Oregon.
That's what I think. That's what I think about.
It's crazy.
It's insane. Yeah. It's insane money. And then to see what they do offer, like in Helene in the Western North Carolina, they were like, oh, here's going to be $700, but you have to prove. And it's like, how the shit am I supposed to prove anything if it literally just washed away? Yeah. Everything is gone.
So crazy.
Come to my address and tell me I don't, right? Like, $700, they ain't doing nothing.
A one time too. It's not like it's every week.
I mean, that was just we shouldn't get into it because it's
a lot. Yeah.
It's so mishandled. Yeah. It's not even, but.
Well, and again, this is where it all comes back down to just educating yourself and knowing about what's important sometimes to you and I. You always think to yourself, well, I'm too busy to focus on X, Y, Z. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be that busy because this is the reason why a lot of local politicians get elected. If you don't like how your city looks, it's because you don't vote locally. You only vote every 4 years, and that's a problem.
Well, and you don't know what you're voting for. If you just
That's right.
vote party line, but you
That's
don't
right.
really know what the party stands for, you don't know what the candidate stands for. I've always prided myself on wanting to be more on that middle independent. And if I felt like the candidate was the best person for the job, I didn't care about the party as much. And that's really what it should be. And we really should
Yeah.
probably have more than two parties. But
Yeah.
here we are.
Maybe when AI is running things and we start asking ChatGPT, we're like, hey, what's the best way to run this country? How
You
should
can
we do
ask
it?
ChatGPT so many things, man. I asked it to give me a podcast strategy, and it was like, blah, 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 and I was like, oh,
It's so amazing.
okay
Yeah.
then. I know what I'm
I
doing.
mean, people don't even know you can ask ChatGPT for like healthy nutritional advice and diets and routines, and it's okay to think outside. You don't have to be a creator to do it. Like I was telling a lot of people that, like, well,
Gosh, no.
how would I use ChatGPT? It's not going to benefit me. I go, what do you do on a daily basis? Ask it, the top shows on Netflix to watch. Ask it what you should be eating if you're 40 years old and you weigh 150 pounds. Like you can ask it all that, and it will give you.
You can have
perfect.
it come up with a grocery list and give you the recipes.
Yes.
Okay. We definitely used it we've used it for the holidays to come up with a meal. Like
That's amazing.
I used it for our wedding in Italy. Like you could use it for so many things. It's
epic.
ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous what
So
you can do.
So people need to do some research, focus on tech, because it ain't going anywhere. It's only going to get better.
It's not. So it's one of those, like, you might as well join them, right? Can't beat them, join them.
That's it. Well, listen, Amanda, we're already at well over an hour. This has been fun. This flies by, no?
I know. We could do this all day.
But where can people
Amanda
find
Tony
you?
shows right now.
Yeah, dude. Where can people find you? What podcast you got going on?
Yeah, mine is Yes You May with Amanda May Gray, all about finding confidence, real conversations. I think I've renamed it Unfiltered Confidence. Not renamed, but that's my new tagline. I want real people talking about real things, not people that you can't relate to, and no filter, because I don't want canned answers. Right. I don't need ChatGPT answers. I want real people talking to me. And then you can find me on all socials, Amanda May Gray, MaeGray. Of course, I've got to have spelling problems. All the socials, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I don't do much on Twitter, but I'm there.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn. If you want somebody to come out and host your event or be a public speaker and motivate your staff, I got you.
It has been a pleasure. Good talking to you. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good topics. But I'll definitely leave every link and all that down below so if people want to check it out just listening. But yeah, this was fun. Thanks again for hopping on.
Have a great day. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Later.